Raiders fans are checked out already. Like, not even watching the games, I don't think.
I've been saying this is probably the worst team I've seen since 2006.
Raiders O-line can't block for even 3 seconds.
You ain't doing shit with this offensive line. Firing Chip Kelly was a scapegoat for the Raiders.
He is better than TJ Watt right now. My prediction is the Chargers via blowout.
Nah, hell no.
For some reason, it's like during Christmas time, they gotta put the Raiders and the Chargers against each other. And here we are, Thanksgiving week, going into the holiday season. It's Raider week or Charger week for you guys. A little bit more enjoyable going into this week. Because like the entire Raider Nation spirit, usually when you go into Charger week, no matter what your record is, it gets a boost. Everyone in the Raider Nation just is like, oh, we got to invade SoFi Stadium and upset the Chargers this week. Everyone's super hyped about it. But it's been such a depressing season. I think for the first time since I started creating content, for the first time in a long time that I can remember, Raiders fans are checked out already. Like, not even watching the games, I don't think.
I've been saying this is probably the worst team I've seen since 2006, and 2006 had a top 10 defense. But they had a 32nd ranked offense to go along with it. So Aaron Brooks and Andrew Walters and Marcus Tuiasosopo, those are probably names you don't even know, huh, Mike?
Me and Joe are actually going to this game. We try to go to as many Raiders-Chargers games as we can.
I've been saying this is probably the worst team I've seen since 2006. At this point, I'm numb to the season. Like
that's what it feels like. The Raiders fans usually are still super juiced, even when they're losing. But this year, it's hit them harder than before. Like there was more belief in Pete Carroll, and I kept trying to say, like the roster, it just isn't there. They're getting there. They're getting closer, but the roster, the offensive line is awful.
Well, everybody tells me that I've always been the most positive Raider fan, but I mean, it's debatable because some people say I hate the team. But a lot of people are saying, dang, I've never seen you not as positive going into games. I'm going, because there is nothing. And I try to tell people in the offseason, like everything that I said in the offseason that I got shit on from Raider fans, my win prediction is not there. I said 7-9 going into the season for the Raiders. And I said there was a lot of holes. But I talked about the wide receiver position. I said the Raiders don't have wide receivers that can create separation. They don't have anything that scares the defenses from going to Ashton Jeanty. I talked about the offensive line. I talked about the Raiders' defensive line not having anybody except for Maxx Crosby. So there was stuff that I talked about, and people were just like, you're bullshitting and not wanting to believe, because in the offseason, you don't want to hear the bad things about your team. And I understand that. This has been a team, the Raiders team, that's been tore down multiple times in the last 5 years and try to rebuild it into what the team wants or what the new coach wants. And it's just a very bad roster.
The bright side of it, like I was saying, to start the whole entire draft pick convo, is that they're going to be in a spot to pick somebody. And I think your first two picks, first and second round, no matter where you're drafting, have to be quarterback and tackle. It has to be those two. And if you don't do those two, no one in there knows what they're doing at this point, because you have all these generational talents now on the team with Crosby and Bowers and Jeanty even, and I hate to admit it because I don't want Jeanty to be a successful running back in the NFL at this point. But these guys are beasts, and they are building blocks that you could build around. If you get a corner and you get a receiver and you get a quarterback, you get a tackle, it could be scary really quickly for the Raiders. But Joe, would you rather not be able to build a team ever or be able to build a perfect team that has a star player at every position, but they all get injured every season? Like, which one would you rather have?
You would want your team to win, right? But people get tired of that. People get tired of the consistency. Like Pittsburgh Steelers fans, they don't know what they have with Mike Tomlin. Yes, he hasn't won a playoff game in 6 years, but you're in the playoffs every single year. Like you're in contention every single year. I just want to feel what it's like to be in contention one time. So I'll build that perfect roster that never wins the Super Bowl, but always loses. Like at the end, I will take that over constantly being at the top of the draft and always screwing that up and losing every season. We always talk shit. Like, and I always say like, there's only one winner at the end of the year. So no matter where you finish, like that's kind of bullshit, right? Like that's a bit, a cop out move that anybody can use to kill a conversation, and it's easier to do, but
not pointing any fingers.
But I'm just saying, like, it's like you can win a conversation not doing that, but at the end of the day, would you rather your team go one and done in the playoffs? Yes, I'd rather get that extra playoff game and be like, okay, we're there, because then it brings back hope again, and you're always fighting. I'd rather watch meaningful games at the end of the year than sitting here at Thanksgiving going, what are we drafting?
I'm with you 100%. That's why when people are always like talking about the Chargers being bad or terrible or all this thing, I'm like, guys, calm down. We're 7-4. I understand there's some big problems, and the Chargers have to grit through this, but this is a lot better than it could be if we didn't have just Justin Herbert. I mean, just that one player. So keep counting your blessings. It is Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone watching this. Joe, let's give our predictions for the Chargers-Raiders game real quick here. I think that the key matchups are on both sides, pretty obvious for both teams. And I already hinted at it a little bit, but I think it's going to be the Raiders' ability here with the new offensive coordinator, which I'd like you to touch on a little bit. What do you think the differences are on the new offense and what's going to be called here this week and how it's going to help the Raiders or how it's going to hurt the Raiders? But the key is going to be, can you guys keep Khalil Mack, Tuli Tuipulotu, Derwin James, all these guys off Geno Smith? Because we all saw the tape from last week. I mean, that Raiders O-line can't block for even 3 seconds. And on the flip side, the Chargers got absolutely obliterated by the Jaguars in a similar fashion, where the O-line can't protect Herbert to save his life. Herbert had his worst game of his career, in my opinion, off of getting rattled from those pass rushes. The matchups are super key. They're super simple. Who has a better game plan to stop Maxx Crosby, or who has a better game plan to stop Khalil Mack and Tuli? I just think the Chargers have more horses. I think the Chargers, even though their O-line is banged up, kind of can piece it together a little bit more. Like, the Raiders starters are just going out there and getting cooked. The Chargers are at least working with an entirely almost backup O-line.
Well, the Raiders have about 3 guys on their offensive line that wouldn't be starters or probably even on a roster in some teams. And that's how bad it is. And they refuse to put the rookie. How do you draft 2 offensive linemen in the 3rd round and not even give them you're not even developing them? They can't be worse than what you saw last week, right? Like, put him out there with the new offensive coordinator, Greg Olsen. Basically, it's not a new offensive coordinator. It's his 3rd stint with the Raiders. Like, every time an offensive coordinator gets fired, basically, Greg Olsen, you're the guy.
How's he even stay on the team that long?
Well, he's been through multiple regimes. So he was there with Hugh Jackson, I want to say.
That went well.
Or he wanted the job when Hugh Jackson got the job. So he was there right before that with Lane Kiffin. He was there with John Gruden. John Gruden brought him back, and then Pete Carroll brought him back. So, I mean, he's a respected guy around the league. He's been on Sean McVay's staff the last couple of years. Now, what I think you're going to see with Greg Olsen is he's going to try to establish a run and actually do like play action. Like, like a couple of weeks ago, the Raiders tried to do a play action game, but they didn't run the ball. You can't do play action if the defense ain't biting on nothing when you're not giving anything to bite on. Pete Carroll wants to run the ball. Him and Chip Kelly fought over that. They need to go back to fundamentals, but at the end of the day, you ain't doing shit with this offensive line. You might be able to design a couple of plays, but you saw it last week against the Cleveland Browns where their game plan was to get rid of the ball quick, and it still didn't work. Still didn't work. I don't know how much more an offensive coordinator – this was a scapegoat. Firing Chip Kelly was a scapegoat for the Raiders when you still have Brandon Carroll as your offensive line coach, and you're not going to fire him because, why? He's Pete Carroll's son. When your main problems are still there. Like, we could say blame Geno as much as we want, but if you're not blocking people for Geno, it's not helping as well.
The Chargers just got absolutely pounded on. Yeah, pause. By that rookie running back in Jacksonville, Tootin. Like, absolutely destroyed by him. Looked like a Brandon Staley defense, not a Jesse Minter defense. But on the flip side, every time this Chargers defense gets challenged like that, every time we have a bad game, they come out and they just are pissed off. And they just destroy the next team they play. So I got the Chargers winning 63-21. You got a score prediction
for the Chargers, Raiders?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, let's get it hype. Kicking it off with NFLMIKE. Yeah, get ready to ride. You know that numbers and ball don't lie. It takes talent. Yeah, you gotta have love for the game. Super Bowl to Hall of Fame. Touchdown, I hope that you got your head in the game.